The Champions League kicks off tonight. I'm buzzing for it. We've got Manchester City versus Inter tomorrow. It seems like most game weeks now, you've got a big game to look forward to, and that is the new format. I'll explain that briefly now for those of you that don't understand. So previously there were 32 teams, and that was divided into 8 groups of 4. One club from each pot would be in each group, and we've now got a massive 36 team league. So it's no longer different groups, and you think, well, what do the pots even do anymore? Well, the pots, you play one team from each pot, so you're going to play basically a fair split against each difficulty of opponent. You're playing one at home and one away. So if you're playing, for example, Manchester City or Feyenoord at home, we're not going to play them away. You can only play one team at home and one team away, and so on. So you're playing 8 different teams, 4 away, 4 home, and 2 from each pot. Obviously, the bigger games are far more frequent, meaning more TV revenue, more eyes on the Champions League, etc. The top 8 clubs within the 36, they will advance straight to the round of 16, whereas the next 16 down, so that's club 9 to club 24 within the table, they will then play against each other in a round of 32, if you want to call it that, to then earn the right to play against the top 8. So if you don't finish in the top 8, but you finish from 9 to 24, you'll play an extra round. If you're a big club and you wanted to reduce your fixture load and you want to basically stamp your ground in the Champions League, you want to be finishing in that top 8. You could still win it, of course, from being beneath that, but you want to be in that top 8 to make sure you don't have to play an extra round and potentially get knocked out. So here are my predictions. I'm not going to predict the entire table because I feel that's a little bit unnecessary. I don't know why you do that, because finishing 34th or 36th is very arbitrary. So I'm going to do my predictions in a different way. I'm going to instantly rule out clubs. And this is very disrespectful. I know it's pretty disrespectful. I'm going to rule out clubs I don't think will get close to winning the Champions League. I'm then going to give you another bracket of clubs that I potentially think could get near the top 8 or just below. And then I'll go on to call some of the teams I think will make it to maybe the semi-finals, the final even. And then, of course, the winner of the 2025 Champions League in Munich. So as I said, I know this is disrespectful, but this is just the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to rule out clubs that I don't think will do too well. I'll explain for a few of them why as well. Aston Villa, I think they're a great side in the Premier League, but I just don't think they have any European strength at the moment. Last season, they failed to win the Conference League or even make it to the final last season, so I just don't think they're good enough to compete really in the Champions League and actually make their way into that top 8. I think they've got an alright chance of getting in that middle 16, I'll call it, but they're not getting in the top 8, and I don't think they're getting close to winning it. In the same category as Villa, I'm going to put Lille, Monaco, Brest, Bologna, Salzburg, Sturm Graz, Sparta Prague, Club Brugge, Bratislava, PSV, Feyenoord, Stuttgart, Zagreb, Celtic, again, a British club. I don't think they're anywhere near good enough to compete properly in the Champions League. Young Boys, Red Star, Shakhtar, Girona, Leipzig and Atalanta. Now, I actually am going to apologise. I don't know enough about any of these teams to properly go into detail as to why they're not going to do well. But these would be the clubs that most people typically associate with not doing too well in the Champions League. And I think it is difficult for these clubs, especially with the new format, to actually try and break through and advance. Previously, all they needed to do, and I say all, it's a very difficult task, they had to finish in the top 2 of a group. But if they were in a fairly weak group, they could maybe win the group or get second, and they'd get through, and then you're looking at maybe another tie they could make. And you could maybe see one of these teams sneaking their way through to the quarterfinal, or think about 2022. Villarreal is a team similar to these, and they made it through to the semi-final against Liverpool and actually gave them almost a shock. So a lot of these teams used to previously could get through to a later round, and I really like that in the Champions League, but unfortunately I think this is down to the new format. A lot of these teams are going to struggle, and I don't know what you guys think about it. Leave a comment below, but I think a lot of these lesser teams or slightly weaker teams that aren't expected to do well, that I'm going to hold my hands up, that one of these could easily get through and maybe even go on to win it. That's the joy of a cup competition, but I just don't think they personally will, and that is down to the new format. It's very difficult for any of these clubs to get into the top 8 and go on to win it. Now on to the teams that I think have a chance of getting into that top 8 or maybe just below. Arsenal, of course, we know what they can do in the Premier League last season, finishing second, but I would question them in Europe. Last season, disappointing for them. Lost 1-0 in aggregate. That was poor. Liverpool, they're back in the competition after not being in last year, but I think Liverpool are always a threat in this competition. They've won it 6 times, and I think you can never rule out Liverpool if they're in the competition. My club, of course, Manchester City. I think we are probably one of the favourites, but I'll go on to that, to win the competition. PSG, I don't rate them as much as previous years, but now they don't have any superstars in the team, if you want to call it that. I think maybe they have a better chance, actually, because there's less pressure on them, and I think they do have a little chance of going far into this competition. They've never won it, of course. But PSG are up there for me. Bayern Munich. Now, I don't think they have as much chance as previous years. I do rate Vincent Kompany as a manager, but I personally think it's quite early for him in his career to go to such a big club in Bayern Munich. He might prove me wrong. He's had a good start in Bundesliga. He's got Harry Kane in there. So maybe Bayern might make it far, but I don't think they can go on to win it. We've got Dortmund, a great side, always a threat in this competition to get to the last stages. Unlucky getting to the final last year and losing to Real Madrid. They really shocked everyone by getting there. Juventus, a great side, of course. AC Milan. Real Madrid are always going to be a threat in this competition. They've now got Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., too many good players to name, Bellingham, and everyone is highlighting Real Madrid as the winners of this competition. I don't see it. I personally don't see it. I think this team could actually shock people by not making it that far in the competition. I think this team actually reminds me a lot of that PSG team from maybe 2020, 2021 that did well, but it's a team of superstars. I don't know how well they're going to play as a team, and I think that's evidenced by poor start in La Liga, to be honest. So Real Madrid might be a shock. Early exit, not early, but maybe quarter-final. We'll see anyway, I might be proven wrong. Barcelona, I think, could do very well in this tournament. They've started very well in La Liga. And I do rate Barcelona, Lamine Yamal, some great young talent in there. And I think they could do well, Barcelona. Atletico Madrid, Alvarez, new signings. They've got Sorloth. They've got a great firepower up front now. And they're a very good defensive side. So I always rate Atletico. I always think they can make it to the latter stages with Simeone. And I think they probably will make that top 8, in my opinion. They're very defensive. They're great in this cup football format. And I think Atletico will do well. Benfica and Sporting, both Portuguese sides. I think both of these tend to do pretty well. They always make it to the knockouts typically, but I don't think they're going to go much further than that. I could see them probably finishing just outside the top 8, but definitely in that 9 to 24, in that middle 16. I don't think they'll go on to win it, but I think Benfica and Sporting, you've got to credit them. I think they're decent sides. And finally, Leverkusen obviously shocked the world last year with an amazing run. Obviously winning the Bundesliga unbeaten, almost winning the Europa League if it wasn't for Atalanta, who actually did put in the other category. For me, Atalanta did so well to win the Europa League last season, but I don't think they can really challenge in the Champions League. Leverkusen, on the other hand, I think they were far more consistent last season. Obviously didn't go on to win the Europa League, but obviously in Bundesliga, 34 games unbeaten is incredible. I think they'll do well again in the Bundesliga this season. I think they'll get pretty far in the Champions League, but I don't see them getting much further than maybe the quarter-final or semi-final stage. And that leads us, of course, to the winner. Who do I think will win the Champions League? Real Madrid, of course, are a huge, huge favourite, I think. Inter, a great Italian side. Obviously, who City are playing tomorrow, but you have guessed it already. I think Manchester City are going to go on to win the Champions League. I think this new format suits us. I think we'll definitely get in that top 8, potentially even win the 36-team group phase, and I think City are going to go on to win the Champions League. And think about that treble season. We did so well. We absolutely annihilated every team in that knockout stage, and when we get there, I think we're going to potentially do the same thing. Real Madrid in the final is what I don't want. I'd like them over 2 legs. Last year, we were so unlucky against Real Madrid. That was a coin toss, that game. Defended well, and they beat us on penalties. But I think if we got them again this season, we get the better of them. But I'm back in City to win the Champions League this season. Come back to this video, and I will be proven right, I hope, in 2025. Up the Blues, up the Champions League. We are back. Let me know your predictions in the comments, and also big up to all the channel members that are joining. I really appreciate the support. You're keeping the channel going, so I hope you do know that. Thanks very much also to anyone that leaves a like, subscribes, and as I said, leave your thoughts in the comments. I will see you in the next one.